Good afternoon, runners, and welcome to the RBC Brooklyn Half chat. Guys, we are 2 weeks out from the race coming on this Saturday. Get ready because this chat is all things Brooklyn, and I am joined by a spectacular cast and panelists of experts in their fields to get you to that start line and across the finish line healthy and happy with maybe a great PR or at least a smile on your face and a Nathan's hot dog in the hand crossing that finish line. I want to thank you all for joining us today. We have Annick Lamar from NYRR. She'll be answering some of our great coaching questions and all the questions you guys have. Cathy Wysin from our partners at HSS. And we also have Emily Jevons from Science in Sports Nutrition. Thank you all for joining us today. Cathy, it's great to see you again. How you been doing?
I know it's been a while since I've seen you. We're in the same spot as last time, but everything's good. How are you?
We're good over here. It's always great to have you on the show. I know a lot of runners right now have maybe some last minute discomforts or pains. As we were talking before the show, this does happen in this end of the training cycle. So we're definitely going to get to all those questions. Guys, if you have any last minute discomforts, like I said, put those questions in the chat. Cathy's here to help you out. Annick, as always, a lot of runners also, those last few weeks for the race is sometimes the hardest. I find you're used to running a lot. You start tapering. You have the last long run coming up. What do you do? So a lot of questions coming up. So thank you very much for joining, Annick.
Yeah, happy to be here, Steve. This is the most exciting time as a runner. You've done almost everything right. So now it's a lot about what you don't do. And I'm excited to talk about that on today's show.
Love that. And Emily, thank you so much for joining. Nice meeting you. I'm glad to have Science in Sports today. It's our new gel sponsor and a great partner for us. As I said before, I had it for the first time a few weeks ago at a race in Brooklyn, a different Brooklyn race, and it was phenomenal. I'm glad you're here to talk about it and educate a lot of runners on it. So thank you very much for joining.
It's okay. Thank you for having me.
Guys, like I said, any questions you have, put those in chats. And you guys are already talking. I love it. Put in where you're watching from. And I want to know who the farthest person away from us here in the tri-state area. That person will get a virtual high five from me. Put your questions and shout outs in the chat. We're going to go over this a little bit later. This chat, we have a lot going on. We're going to talk about your last long run coming up probably this weekend for most of you guys. It could have been last weekend, but a lot of people, it's this weekend is your last long run. We're going to talk about, like I said, dealing with last minute pains or discomforts and how to utilize those SIS gels on race day to get the best out of those 13.1 miles along the course. And so let's jump into it. Annick, like I said, we're about 2 weeks out from the big day, 2 weeks out come this weekend. So where should runners be in terms of their training?
Well, you said it perfectly, Steve. Either you have done your long run last week or you are about to do your last long run. And this is a great effort. You should go out there. You should really try and nail the paces prescribed. But after this, you can think of this as the last big hill in your training plan. You want to nail this effort. You want to do a great job. You are going to peak over this long run hill, and then it's a long downhill until race day. And so you really want to focus good energy, be prepared. This is a great run to test out the shoes you're going to wear, the clothes you're going to wear, the nutrition you're going to take on the course. Are you going to wear a sunscreen and you haven't tried your sunscreen out? This is a great time to figure out if your sunscreen is going to run in your eyes. Do you need to run with like a little waist pack because you want to hold your credit card? You have to try that all out. And this is a perfect time to try it out. So what don't you know yet as a runner in terms of what you're going to wear for race day and how you're going to be prepared? And how can this long run both serve a physiological benefit to you? And how can it actually be a testing ground, be a little lab rat for your race day effort? We always say nothing new on race day, and long runs are a perfect place to practice what you're going to do. So Coach Steve, it's really about using this time to get a last great effort in and then testing out what you need to test out.
So Annick, I think that is in the perfect world. I think that'd be great. But I think on the opposite side, sometimes this last long run doesn't go to plan. Things don't happen. You go out for 10 miles, the highest run or longest run, 10, 11, 12. It's a first half marathon. The wheels come off early. What do we learn from this? Or are there things that we can learn because we didn't get our last run complete, or what we consider our longest distance? What do we do after that? And let's just say it wasn't because of injury, maybe a stomach issue. What do we do from here?
Yeah, so you really want to figure out what happened, right? Was it a pacing error? Did you go out too fast? So on race day, you do need to pull back and actually pump the brakes. A very common error is to just go out too fast in races, and that includes long runs as you get closer to. Was it something about heat? Have you not been hydrating? Did you not practice with your fueling and nutrition correctly? So you can start to be an investigator and solve for the issues that happened. The other thing you need to do is just let it go, right? Sometimes you have a tough run. It is not indicative of your training plan. It's not indicative of how you're going to perform on race day. And you really just need to make peace with it, not try and sneak another long run in the plan, because you do need to recover during that taper window. Right before the race, you need to relax and let your body recover during this time. So there's no sneaking in extra work. Be an investigator if you can. Try and solve for small issues, but be very kind to yourself. Because sometimes a bad run is just simply that, it's a bad run. And so don't make it more than it is if you can't put your finger on why it didn't go well.
That's great advice. I love it so much. Guys, if you have questions about your training or training specific, put those in the chats, because I know Annick loves this part of the show when we answer all of your questions. So please put those in there. We're going to come to them a little bit. Let's go over to Cathy. Cathy, got some great questions for you, because I want to know, as we talked before, there could be discomfort going into the last long run or in the taper period. What do we do to kind of get confident in these last 2 weeks coming off maybe an injury? Let's just say not super severe. We can run, but it's a discomfort in our bodies.
Yeah, I think if, piggybacking off of the training, you're kind of coming to the culmination of the training at this point. This is your last long run. So you've been putting weeks and months of heavy effort. So you may be feeling the weight of the training, a little bit of discomfort. There may also be some nerves and anxiety mixed in there as well, especially if this is, your first half marathon. So I think the important question to ask yourself is, what is this pain and discomfort? How is it affecting you? If you're just feeling muscle soreness and fatigue and it's not affecting how you're running or causing you to limp, you're probably okay to still run. Maybe you back off the mileage a little bit if you're really feeling fatigued. So if you were going to do 11 miles this weekend, maybe you do 10, maybe you scale back a little bit that way, or maybe you, instead of a run during the week, you do a little cross training. Maybe you make some modifications there if you're really feeling fatigued and muscle achy and sore. I think the other piece of this, though, is that if you're having pain at rest, or it's altering how you're walking or you're moving, or you're limping when you're running, you can't get out of your chair and up and down the stairs because of pain, then that's a different conversation where you probably shouldn't be running and maybe need to have someone to take a look at you. I think in general at this point, less is a little bit more. So if you are a little sore and fatigued, it's okay to scale back. It is better to be a little bit undertrained and maybe not get all those miles in for your longer run than to try and push through and make something that's minor and just some muscle fatigue and potentially, push it into something more. And I think I would also say is if you do have to scale back a little bit in these coming days, do not try to sneak a long run in next week. More is not going to help you. So regardless of what you do this weekend, don't try to do more over the next 2 weeks. I think really respect the taper. Mm-hmm.
I love that advice, especially going into the race, even a little undertrained than overtrained is valuable advice for new runners. Also, people may be pushing for a PR or pushing for a certain time. They think that one more speed workout, one more long run, one more something is going to help them, but actually hurt them in the end. So that's definitely really good advice for a lot of runners to hear. We have a lot of runners out there, and they might also be cross-training, thankfully, during this time, during training. How does cross-training come into the taper period? Do we keep cross-training? Does it depend on the activity? What do we do during those last 2 weeks of training leading up to the race?
In short, yeah, you should probably taper down your cross training a little bit. You should also probably taper down some of your strengthening, especially in that last week. The purpose of the taper is to really let your muscles, your connective tissues, your bones, your overall body heal and repair itself to build up for race day. So tapering is not just cutting back running, it's kind of cutting back everything you're doing. So that you can get to the race line healthy. It's cutting back intensity and volume. So if you're, spinning or swimming, maybe you still do those things, but instead of, a 45-minute spin ride, maybe you do 20 or 30 minutes. So you should be cutting back really the volume and intensity of everything you're doing. You're going to have a little bit of extra time during the taper, which I think is what shifts people to wanting to do a little bit more. But think about the taper time to, shift your focus from cross training and running to getting some extra sleep in, hydration, nutrition, what's your race day prep going to be there? I think the biggest thing to really remember is that less is more during those these 2 weeks, and you really should be cutting back the running and the cross training and some of your strengthening. Give your body this time to recover so you can be at your, optimal condition for race day.
Love that. Really good advice. Runners, if you have questions about any discomforts, any injuries you have or cross training, please put those in the chat. We're going to get to your questions soon. I see a few questions in there. We're going to get to you, Donnie and Alexandra. I promise. I see your questions. We're going to get to you soon. But I definitely want to talk to Emily because we have a new gel sponsor out there, guys. Science and Sports going to be on the course for you around just past mile 6 on the course. So, Emily, let's talk about Science and Sports energy gels. What's in them? What makes them different than other nutrition products out there? Talk to us about it. Because for a lot of runners, it might be the first time, hopefully not the first time using it, but maybe in a race they've been using it in practice before the race. So talk to us a little about it.
Yeah, sure. So energy gels, as far as I'm aware, Science and Sport was one of the world's first actual energy gels to be created and marketed, which is obviously really cool. But the energy gels are designed to deliver quick, convenient, great tasting, in my opinion, maybe I'm biased, easily digestible carbohydrates. They're designed to be quite easy to hold as well, so you haven't got bulky sports bottles, and they're just easy to consume on the go. You just rip them open with your teeth, and there you go. You can then consume them. Lots of different flavors. I'm not sure what flavors you'll have on the course, so maybe you'll have to see there. And I just think the way that they can be used with your fueling strategy is you don't need to consume them with water. So you're not going to have all that excess liquid slogging around in your stomach. They're a lot easier to consume on the go. And yeah, that's a brief overview really on why those energy gels. Any more questions there?
No, I love that. Like I said, first time I used them in a race a few weeks ago, and they went down very easy. I took without water, which was really helpful for me too, because I didn't have to plan it around a water stop coming up, which is really helpful for me. So like I said, they're going to be on the course right past mile 6. So what other products do you guys have? Maybe a recovery, anything recovery or pre that runners can also look for or utilize maybe during this race or future races?
Yeah, so we have a large variety of different products that you can use, looking at either hydration, energy, or recovery. There's a few that I'd probably like to highlight. I think if you guys have got your half marathon coming up, that I think might be able to be even useful if you have time to use them within the next 2 weeks of practice. I'd have a look at the Go Hydro tablets, and they're literally a really small tablet. There's barely any calories in them. I think it's only 7, and the sole focus is to keep you hydrated. So it's full of electrolytes, which are what we use up when we sweat. We lose them, so we don't just lose water, we lose salts as well. So what you could actually do is have a Go Hydro tab in the morning so that you're actually starting the event really well hydrated. But that's more if you can get it beforehand, so you can have a bit of a practice and check that your body agrees with it. And recovery-wise for this event as well, I'd probably have a look at, we have a recovery powder called Rapid Rego. Chocolate flavor is my personal preference, but we have a few to choose from. And this powder is a great all-round recovery drink that you mix with water. It has protein to aid muscle recovery, carbohydrates in it to aid glycogen replenishment, to actually replenish those stores within your body. And again, it contains electrolytes to help with hydration. So it's basically an all-round recovery drink that can be really easily consumed after the race when you're there. And I'm just trying to think if there's any other products I recommend looking at. I know on the course you've got the energy gels and also the Beta Fuel chews. Got to say, they're one of my favorite products. I'm more of a chew person than a gel. Got to put my hands up there because I prefer actually eating something solid. And the Beta Fuel chews in particular are a bit more high carbohydrate. So if you're used to consuming quite a lot of carbohydrate when you run, they might be more tailored towards you. You have, I think it's 22 grams of carbohydrates in the gels versus around, I think it's around the 40 mark in the chews. So I guess it's personal preference if you prefer to have a liquid or something actually solid when you're on the course.
I love that. Really good advice. And thanks you for letting us know all about the SIS brand. We have some great shout outs from runners. Guys, like I said, any questions you have, even about the SIS gels, put those in the chats. I want to hear from you. But some shout outs, we have some runners. We have Antonio says from Chow from Brooklyn. He's from Rome, actually. He's in Rome. Sorry about that wrong. He's in Rome. Ivor Singh, greetings from the Philippines. The Traveling Runner says howdy from Long Island City. We got Gail also watching from Long Island on her lunch hour. We got Sarah says, can't wait to try SIS gels. Arturo says hi from Jersey Shore. And another one, Matifo, sorry I pronounced your name wrong, from Manhattan. So thank you guys so much for joining and watching from all over the world. That's great. We have questions coming in here. Alexander asked our first question. Let's toss it. I think Annick, maybe I'll have you address this first, and then Cathy, anything you can add on. This is my first half. My toes started bleeding on the long run this week. I just got new shoes to address it, but I'm worried about breaking them in. Any advice? So Annick, talk about breaking in shoes. How long does that take? Is it enough time right now to break in shoes?
Yeah, so this idea of breaking in shoes, it's really about wearing them so they feel a little bit more comfortable to you. And, as coaches, we say that can take like a week. It can take, for me, it took about 2 weeks as an athlete. It really is your comfort. And it sort of depends if you've gone from a shoe you've worn and you've got maybe just a different version of that shoe now, an updated, a newer version, or maybe you just got a size up. Running shoes are supposed to be about a 1/4 inch bigger than your traditional shoes. So I wear 9.5 in a lot of my shoes. All my running shoes are a size 10. They have to be because it does prevent your toes from rubbing against the front of the shoe. Your foot generally slides a little bit when you run, and you want to protect all those toenails and make sure you have no bleeding happen. So you're really going for comfort. I'm not going to tell you to go, if this is a shoe issue, I'm not going to tell you to go back into your old shoes and just hope you don't bleed. If the new shoe feels comfortable and you're able to go for a couple runs, you can go with that shoe. However, I think Cathy's going to have a take from more of a health science perspective about maybe what other things could be happening and how to make sure you keep your feet clean and safe and you're not getting infected.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing here is going to be the fit of the shoes. If shoes are a little bit too snug, you could get some of that bleeding. You may not have enough room for your feet to move. The other thing that you may start to think about, and it may be a little bit too soon for this now because we're about 2 weeks out. So I think finding something that's comfortable is going to be key for you to get through the race. But you may actually think about going to a running store or someplace where they actually, take a look at your foot type, really size you and fit you for the right shoes, taking a look if you're more of a flat-footed runner or have flat feet, I should say, or more, have a high arch. So that way you're not only in a shoe that fits you correctly, but a shoe that fits your foot type. So I think that's, probably more so something that you need to maybe look at a little bit further down the road. I also piggyback to, how long are you wearing your shoes? Are you changing them out every 300 to 500 miles? So again, not to say that one shoe is better than the other. I think this may be a fit issue, but I think it warrants, really for everybody across the board to maybe, go to a running store here in the cities, places like Jackrabbit, have them look at your foot type, look at the running, and make sure you're fit for the right size shoe and the right type of shoe.
I love that. We could talk about shoes all day, I'm sure, in this chat. So we're going to end with there. But I love that question. And I think it's very common as well. So Alexander, thank you for the great question. Let's go to Donnie. Annick, we'll jump to you for Donnie's question. I ran a half marathon last weekend. Should I count this as my last long run? Should I do any additional smaller runs?
All right. So this is a great question, Donnie. That counts as your long run. So I don't know how hard the effort was for you. I don't know if you were going 100% into the well, into your tank, and now you're fatigued. But typically when you race a longer distance race like this, it takes about a day per mile to recover. So the good news is that that's 12 days, which is 2 weeks. So it's going to put you right up against this half marathon. Now, if you didn't go into your energy stores for this half marathon that you just ran, you treated it more like a long run, then it's going to feel like a long run and you can push it on race day. And that can be fun and exciting and you can really go for it. It really will depend on how you feel. During this 2-week window, no more long runs for you. You're done. Check that box. Congrats. It really is going to be about gentle, easy running. What you're really trying to do is optimize that recovery window. So you're going to want to go out for, we're talking about 3, 4, maybe 5 miles, really relaxed, a couple times a week, get the blood flowing, see how your legs are recovering. but you're not going to want to do anything strenuous. You're really going to try and optimize your taper period, which is this 2-week period. And you more than most people, because you did do potentially a race effort and a little bit longer than usual. So if you're you run a lot of races, you run all the time, it might feel like you recover really quickly and you can just have a normal taper period. If you are really, if this was a really tough effort and you feel a little depleted, like easy 3-mile runs, 2-mile runs, just get some recovery, get your blood flowing, and take care of yourself. And that's what's going to be key to having a really nice race day for your next half marathon. But good luck. You can do this. You got it. This is something that can be done. So you can do it.
I love that. Let's jump back into my questions. And guys, definitely keep the questions coming. I see a few more even on there now. Keep the questions coming and let us know where you're watching from. I'm going to come back to those in a second. Emily, I want to jump to you. So like I said, SA is a brand new partner for ours. A lot of runners have never used it before. What is the best way to get started using the product? Just go out the door, grab a bike and go use it? Or is it more of a, I don't want to say scientific way to use it, but is there a better way to use the first time use the product than just my example?
Yeah. First of all, I'm going to add that I'm here from the UK. I feel like everyone's sharing where they're listening from. So, I feel like I might as well contribute there. So a bit different over here. But in terms of how best to actually start using the gels or any product really when it comes to running is simply to practice with it. Now, I think the ladies have already mentioned practicing for different things when it comes to running shoes as well. And it's almost trying to be as consistent as possible when it comes up to race day. Now, which runs you might think? Whether should it be a long run? Should it be your intervals? Should it be easier runs? I think the best way to start with, if you have the time, this is to actually using something different, especially with an energy gel. How your body's going to react is obviously very different between individuals. So I'd always almost like first try maybe 45 minutes, taking the gel about 20 minutes in. I mean, you probably wouldn't need it that early on in a race, but stay close to home and just see how your body reacts. If you might, because some people going to get stomach cramps from gels, some people fly. There is a very, very broad variation. As I said, my personal preference is chews rather than gels. And that's because I prefer them like GI wise. So again, there's a lot of practice makes perfect here. And then you could incorporate them into different run sessions, because your body's going to react differently when you're running at higher intensities to actually using the fuel. Some people, again, you might get stitches sometimes in different run sessions, depending on what you're doing. I'm sure people have all experienced that. You might get it during an interval run, but not a long run, or vice versa. You might not get any issues at all. But the key really would be to simply trial. It's a bit of trial and error. Stay close to home when you're first using things. And then when you get a bit more adventurous, go out further. Practice carrying them. Again, some people prefer having like a hydration pack and using one of our energy powders instead as like a drink. There's lots of different things, but the key would be to practice if you can, really, beforehand.
Emily, that's amazing. So how do we know that it worked? Obviously, we know how it doesn't work because it affects our stomach, whatever digestive issues might have. Is the opposite of that? You just don't notice anything. That's how you know it works. So what is the way, okay, this gel worked for me versus this gel doesn't work for me?
Well, I guess that would come down to how you feel massively. I mean, hopefully you won't bonk with your energy levels. I think that's a big one. In general, our bodies, if you have a healthy, balanced diet, you will have about 90 minutes worth of energy stores naturally. So if you're quite a quick runner, you might be all right in a half marathon without, but you still might want that energy boost anyway. But depending on your duration, technically that means 90 minutes you'll start to flag, and we don't want that really. And a lot of people running a half marathon will be over that. So it's that the main thing is to make sure you don't bonk. And hopefully the purpose of our energy gels or any carbohydrate supplement during a run is to try and prevent fatigue and maintain our blood glucose levels. That's the whole purpose of it, because we have these cellular stores for our energy. We store like carbohydrate is something called glycogen in our muscles, but if possible, we want to try and keep that for as long as possible. So if we can actually have our carbohydrates circulating in our blood as glucose instead, it's going to spare us going into those stores. So it can like maintain our energy, prevent fatigue, and yeah, try and keep us going and not hitting that wall. Or I don't know if you guys use the term bonk actually in America, or it might mean something completely different. But sometimes that's in the UK you might say you've bonked if you've just run out of energy, or hitting the wall. I'm sure there's lots of different terms for it.
We do use the term, no worries. Yeah, it's we've said wall, or I think bonking I've heard more as cycling terms here, but it definitely is used as well, more wall, but yeah, they're both used. So no, that's amazing, definitely helpful. Cathy, let's talk about after the race. So after the race obviously is important, and a lot of runners don't think about what to do when they finish the race. So, talk about recovering maybe right afterwards, maybe a day after, and then like a week after. What do we do on this phase of our recovery?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, when you cross the finish line, keep moving. Avoid trying to sit down. Keep walking. Keep moving. Get some nutrition and some hydration immediately within you. After, within about 60 minutes after you finish, maybe some gentle foam rolling later. Get the legs up, elevate, and just kind of lay low. First couple of days after the race is really what we consider like a passive recovery. So anywhere from 1 to 3 days up to 5 days. There may be some variation with this based on your running history. Is this your first half marathon, your 50th half marathon? So, a little bit of variation, but you do want to take those first few days completely off. You don't have to lay on the couch all day, but just, you're getting up and moving, your activities of daily living, walking around the home, walking to the store, daily activities. Remember that, it's important to remember that delayed onset muscle soreness can kick in about 24 to 72 hours after the race. So you really want to avoid running during this time frame so that you avoid any further stresses or fatigue to your body. And this is also, in my opinion, a great time to really reflect on the race these first couple of days. What worked, what didn't, how did you feel? What did you use? Did your hydration and nutrition strategy work? Was your training program effective? So you can use a little bit of this downtime to think about this race and how you can apply that information and education to your next race. After a couple of days, you can start a little bit of active recovery. As Coach Annick already said, it's typically 1 day of recovery for every mile you ran. So you're looking about a 2-week recovery. But after those first few days, you can start some easy, light exercise. We're talking a couple miles, stick to about an hour or less. Low intensity. We're not doing speed training. We're not doing hill workouts, intervals, anything of that. The goal is really just to kind of get those legs moving, help with circulation, also assess how you're feeling. Again, if this is maybe your first half marathon, you may not be doing any easy running. You may wait a little bit longer. But after a couple of days, you can start to do a little bit of, light, moderate exercise. We think about after the 2-week mark, I think this really does depend on what's next. I kind of think this is the then what phase. Do you have another race coming up? Is this more of an off season for you? Are you just working on your base mileage? So, maybe after about that 2-week mark, you start doing a little bit more consistent running, 3 times a week. But I think after that actual recovery phase, I think there's a lot of determination in what's next for you on the calendar. But you really do want to respect that, rough 2-week recovery timeframe and avoid any high level exercise.
It's really good advice. I know I sometimes cut that. I shouldn't do it, but I do kind of take that recovery too quickly in the end. So respect those 2 weeks for sure, because it's going to make you stronger and a better runner after those 2 weeks. Annick, I want to jump to you and let's talk about the course a little bit. I feel like I should have done the course and I'm a little out of word here. Annick, talk about this course. For those first timers, what is it like? We don't do the full course strategy, but hills, downhills, uphills, what should we prepare for as sort of mini course strategy leading into the race, and maybe they can implement those on their last long run?
Yeah, I love this course, but this course does have some challenges. It gives and it takes. And so the first part of the course, you are actually going to start right near the Brooklyn Library, if you know where that is, and you're going to circle Prospect Park. Now, Prospect Park is gorgeous. Parts of it are shaded. It is one of New York City's gems. It also has hills. And the fun thing is that if you do a full loop of Prospect Park, it's going to give you some hills, and it's also going to give you some big downhills. And the key while inside the park is really to relax. So you do not want to be flying at this stage. You're going to see a lot of runners. There's a couple points where you actually see the crowd pretty well. Part of the course sort of snakes around and you actually see other people and you get excited. You hear music, people are cheering. It's a really hyped up part of the course, it is so common for people to go bat out of hell during this part of the course when they really need to be conservative because they've got a long way to go. And so, as I said, you're going to want to move up the hill steady, steady, steady this entire time that you're in Prospect Park. Now, you get out of Prospect Park and you are put on Ocean Parkway, and you are on Ocean Parkway for mile 7, mile 8, mile 9, 10, 11, and 12. So you are on Ocean Parkway for 5 miles. And this is where on any run you have between now and race day, I want you to think about what mental skills you are going to put in your runner toolbox so you can be prepared to stay positive when inevitably at some point during this stretch, you start to fatigue. So it's a fatigue period combined with a really long stretched out roadway. There's not a lot of visual change happening. You can actually see the blocks going by. What mental skills are you going to be thinking of? Mantras, a word or a phrase that has meaning to you to keep you focused. Are you going to be listening to really good pump up jams during this time so you feel motivated? What mental skills are going to keep you alert and engaged? Because this can be a pretty long stretch. Now, the good news is I love this stretch because it's slightly downhill. So you come out of Prospect Park and for this long stretch, you are moving slowly. Okay, I'm giving it a much more like sharp, steep decline. It's a very gradual, but it is slowly downhill. And then, of course, you are running to Coney Island. I'm sort of racer who loves to go on a journey. This is a quintessential course that is a journey course. You are going somewhere, and that is the Atlantic Ocean. And that's just the coolest thing about this course is you actually, for that last bit of the race course, you're actually on the boardwalk. You see the ocean, you see the crowds, and it's completely worth it. But keep cool while you're in the first part in the park with those hills. Like, keep it cool emotionally, keep it cool physically. Keep determined on the long stretches. How are you going to stay engaged? And then how are you going to celebrate at the end? Because it's like one of the best finishes. It's just such a cool finish to a race. How are you going to celebrate? Plan your pose ahead of time. And look at the race course. It is on our website. Study it, know it, become best friends with it, be able to draw it in your sleep. Really know the race course. It's such an essential boost any runner can have. And the worst thing that you can do as a runner is not know where you are in the course, not know what's coming ahead. So become an expert on this race course. It's a great one, and folks are going to fly on race day.
I love that. Really good advice. Guys, we'll be doing some course strategy sessions the week of the RBC Brooklyn Half, and that a neat conversation will go at about double that length and break down the course mile by mile for the course strategy session Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday before the race. But I do want to get to some great shout outs and questions from our runners. We have Idu, sorry for pronouncing your name wrong, Idu from Hillsborough, New Jersey. And we have Monica also, hi from New Jersey. So happy and excited to be running in Brooklyn again. And I love the New Jersey shout outs because that's where I am. I believe, Annick, you're in New Jersey right now too. So guys, thank you so much for joining us today. We have some other questions. A lot of questions came in during that last segment there. We have Faza says, had COVID and couldn't run much for 2.5 weeks. Any advice? Let's jump to Annick. Annick, taking maybe 2.5 weeks, 2 weeks off from an illness, COVID. What do you advise for the next 2 weeks of training here?
Yeah, so it really is, are you cleared to run? It can be COVID, it can be a pneumonia, it can be any sort of thing that you've had. You really have to talk to your doctors and bring this question to a primary care physician and ask, am I cleared to run? Based on what I've experienced, based on what you know about me, is a physical activity, is a half marathon distance appropriate for me to do? So start there, right? And if you say yes, if you get medical clearance and your medical team is like, go for it. It really is during this window, gentle, easy runs. You want to add, there's no cramming, half marathon, you're too close to half marathon. There's no cramming for a test at this point. You don't want to do any speed workout. You don't want to be ramping up mileage to try and make up what you missed. You really just want to relax, go for some gentle runs, 2 to 4 miles, make sure your body feels good. And at any time, on any of those runs, or even on race day that you don't feel tops, I am all for the DNF that did not finish. It is super important for runners to feel like they have that option to really live to fight another day, which means just to save your energy and effort for another race down the road where you're going to feel better. But I think sometimes runners put themselves in this position where they have to do something, right? They have to finish a race, or they have to finish even a run. And if your body's telling you something, runners, listen to it. It doesn't matter if you're recovering from COVID, an injury. It doesn't matter if you're really stressed out at work and you're emotionally and physically, emotionally fatigued. You have to listen to that too. So check with your medical team, take it easy, and listen to your body would be the 3 things I would say.
Love that. Really
I've
good
got
advice.
to completely agree there. Sorry, not nutrition related, but yeah, completely agree. I recently had COVID as well. I was meant to be doing a half Ironman this weekend, and yeah, obviously that's not happening. But I had to have time off training completely, and then I was advised to do 7 to 10 days without training after my last day of symptoms, at least. Obviously, check with your medical professional, but it's always worth making sure you're being sensible. It doesn't say when you had COVID in that message, but if it was recent, just be careful and get advice from a medical professional.
Yeah, and I think I would piggyback off that a little. I think I would piggyback that off a little bit more, is that if you do get cleared, I agree, don't push it, but have some expectations. You might not have the energy tolerance or the ability to run the whole race. So maybe you say to yourself, all right, I don't do much if I get clearance. I just want to get to the start line. I think the goals shift a little bit, a DNF, or maybe I walk it. So I think, being really realistic with this race coming up. And I think the focus shifts of, if I get clearance, I just want to finish. I just want to be able to go. But listening to your body and having that realistic expectation that you're probably not going to be at your peak performance, having that diagnosis of COVID. But, good luck with everything.
It's really good advice. I'm glad everyone chimed in there, though, in personal stories. I want to jump to a question from Belissa. This is for Cathy. Belissa asks, is it true that wearing compression socks during or after running aids recovery?
So I don't know the research 100% on this either way, so I can't really speak to that. But, what compression socks are going to do is they're going to aid with blood flow and circulation. So, they may help with performance. We do know that, sometimes if you've been on your feet for a while, I think about myself, and I was on the floors in the hospital at the end of the day, I can have a little bit more swelling down my legs, a little bit more fluid buildup. So they are helping with blood flow and return. So I think there, probably is some benefit to them as far as your performance and maybe in your recovery. However, and this is a really big however, if you've never used compression socks before, if you've never worn them running or worn them after, I probably would shy away from testing them out right now. If you're looking for more medical advice about them, I would maybe, talk to, your doctor, maybe have that one-on-one conversation with a therapist who you're working with. I think there is some benefit to helping with blood flow and circulation and blood return. So you can make your argument it helps with performance, but I probably wouldn't add them in as an adjunct now for training to try to help you out on race day, because you're a little bit too soon to be adding anything new at this point.
Love it. Emily, I want to jump to you. We have a question from a runner, Gail. Gail asks, where can we get SIS products? Is this something we can get at stores, online? Where do we get it for the race? We can train with it.
I know you can get them online, but I don't actually know the American market. I might have to ask you guys actually where you can buy them in the US. Don't know if anyone there can contribute, but definitely online.
Do you have them in I think I've seen them in running stores, depending on how big the running store is. At major running stores, you have them stocked at local running stores, assuming they have a big selection of them.
I mean, in the UK, we even have them in the supermarkets, but I don't know what you guys are. So I just realizing I'm
breakfast style,
I need to get myself over.
I love it. Gail, you can definitely online for sure. I think if it's saying Gail who wrote in from Long Island, check the local running stores. I know there's some big ones in Long Island. I'm kind of where in Long Island you are. You feel to purchase them there. Maybe call ahead so you don't take the trip to them beforehand. We have a question from Supertan. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name properly. I sweat a lot, so I need to hydrate with sodium. Should I carry that with me, or will there be hydration with electrolytes during this race? So there will be Gatorade on the course. Emily, maybe you can talk about any of those items in SIS gels that they also can use.
Yeah, so obviously sodium is important with hydration. As I mentioned before, you could have some hydration product before the event as well, to actually make sure you're starting hydrated. He's mentioned Gatorade. I don't know how much exactly is in that. It's obviously not my area. I think the energy gels that we have are just the Go Isotonic energy gels. We do have some that can include electrolytes, but I'm not sure if they're the ones that you guys have on the course. I mean, might be worth checking, but I don't, off the top of my head, I don't think they're the ones you have. So I would try and make sure you actually start the event hydrated. Maybe look at having a hydration product that contains electrolytes with sodium beforehand as well.
So I got word from our back end. We have on the course for the RBC Brooklyn Half, we'll have flavors fruit salad, orange, citrus, vanilla, cherry, lemon, and lime will be on the course this year's race. So write those down or buy those products. The best place I'm also told to buy SIS gels, Amazon and SIS.com are the best places to purchase the gels before the race. Cathy, I got a question for you. It's from the runner Sue. She asked a question: after a run, the inside of my left ankle turns purple. It doesn't hurt, and after resting and sleep, etc., the discoloration is gone. Is this common? And my follow-up is, what's going on? What should they do?
So purple, I mean, could be a couple things off the head. Hard for me to say 100% without seeing, but I wonder if maybe there's some bruising. I don't know if there's bruising going on for maybe your footwear or something that you're wearing, maybe some rubbing. Could it be a rash, an irritation to something? I don't know if maybe there is some, poor circulation. We're seeing a little bit of pooling of, maybe a bruising somewhere, pooling of blood somewhere. It's hard to say. It seems like it goes away. So I'm assuming it goes away maybe, at the end of the day, once you're in bed and the legs are up and you're fine in the morning. So it could be linked into, maybe circulation, not great blood return, maybe bruising or irritation from shoes. Hard to say. That may be something you have somebody take a look at, because maybe it's, something going on, or maybe it's just footwear. Not sure. That's a tough one. If anyone else has any other thoughts.
Those are really tricky because, like I said, you're not, you can't diagnose it. And so it makes it kind of tricky. So any other follow-ups you have based on that, please put in the chat. We'll try to grab it before the show ends. So let us know if that answered it, or if you need just more clarification, let us know more of the discomfort, or the discoloration. Annick, let's jump to you for a second. We have the name Cupid Smiled says, my training plan only has me tapering for 1 week. 2 more long runs coming up. Is that okay?
Yeah, so I don't have full transparency into your training plan, but what half marathons are shorter, right? Which means that the training intensity and volume to get prepared for them tends to be less as well. So if you were running a marathon, I would really recommend 2 weeks of tapering to recover. As Cathy was talking about, all that great recovery benefit that happens during that time. You really want to optimize that, especially for something like marathon training. Half marathon training can sometimes be less. So if you have gone through your half marathon training and you are really listening to your body and you're evaluating how you're feeling, and you feel fine, you feel mostly recovered every day, you're not feeling ragged, you're not feeling tired, you're sleeping great, you don't feel anywhere close to hard overtrained or really hard training, then maybe a week is all you need. Some training plans aren't really high in volume, and a taper, there's not too much to recover from. However, the flip side is, if you're out there and you're pounding the pavement and you are really tired and you want to have a little bit more taper, do start to either cut a long run short. I am all about athletes personalizing their training plans for what they need and really listening to their bodies. Training plans only work if they're individualized to the person who's using them. So if you think that you need more time because you are doing an evaluation of your exhaustion, your stress, and you just think you need a couple more days easy, feel free to cut a couple miles off different runs, pull back on intensity and pace, and take care of yourself. But it's every runner, even professional runners, it is an art and a science in the taper period of what works for folks. And so really listen to your body to see what you need during this time.
Really good advice. Great job. We have a question from Monica. I'll just answer this one. We have Monica says, For bib pickup, are we able to bring a guest with us like we were for the NYC half? And the answer is yes, you can bring a guest to the pre-party. This event is open to the public, so it is a pre-party, emphasis on the party aspect. There are live bands, there are DJs, there's games on Brooklyn Bridge Park. I believe it's Pier 2. It's one of those piers over there. But yes, you can bring everyone there. Please make sure everyone has proper vaccination and information. You can also have a proxy, someone to pick up your bib for you if you'd like. All that information is on the website. So please go to nyrr.org and look at the race page. But you can bring a guest to come to the pre-party and say hi to us when you're there. This next question from Sue. I'm not sure if it's the same Sue as before. It's kind of maybe a little bit of everyone here. Let's start with Annick. I will start with you first. Sue says, my pace is a 10:30 per mile. I don't eat or drink before or during a morning run, even of 10 or 11 miles. This is my first half marathon. Do I need to eat anything or stick to my training routine?
Oh, Sue, you're throwing us a curveball here. If this were 2 months ago, I'd be telling you should try something new, because research shows that having a little breakfast before heading out the door. I mean, we're all sort of nodding here. We're going, Sue, we want you to be eating something when you get up in the morning to get a benefit and a boost. We want you to be, if you're out there over that 90-minute mark, we want you to be thinking about what nutrition you're taking on the race course. But you're so close to race day that it's a little hard, because it goes against our advice, which is nothing new on race day. So I think my personal take, and I'd love to hear the other folks, my personal take would be to try something a little new. So thinking about what food sits really well with you for breakfast food. I'd love to see you getting up just a little bit early, putting in, half a bagel, quarter of a bagel, something in your stomach so your body can start really accessing some energy. And if you are out there for more than 90 minutes, thinking, is there something that I need to be taking? Maybe an SIS gel. It's so hard though, because you're so close, and I don't want you to try something that would upset your stomach. So I'd love for our other expert guests to do a hot take on this. What do you think for Sue?
Yeah, I completely agree. If you're that close to a half marathon, you're not used to eating food or any kind of nutrition, or you usually run completely fasted, it probably is a bit of a shot in the dark there. And I'd probably try and practice beforehand, just especially the fact that you do all, like, it sounds like you pretty much do all of your, like, even morning runs completely fasted. So normally I would say try and eat something, but if it's not what you're used to at all, maybe don't try just on the day. I mean, if you have time between now and then to actually start, maybe if you're going on a run this week, even if it's not 10, 11 miles, have some breakfast and see how you get on. I mean, if you feel comfortable enough to try beforehand, go for it.
Cathy, what about
yourself? I was actually, I mean, this is a tough one. I was actually thinking, if you have your last long run this weekend, why not try something? I know that for me personally, my breakfast before a work day is very different with my breakfast before a long run on the weekend. So, I may not eat a full normal breakfast on a Sunday morning before I run, but I at least get half a bagel or something in my system. That's me. Maybe you try something like this weekend, but I don't, I kind of am on the side of caution, because what you've been doing has worked for you, but you've got this last long run. So it does give you a little bit of room to maybe just test it out more so that you don't crash and really hit the wall and not have enough food and nutrition in you on race day. But this is a tough one.
I'm glad we wrapped up with a challenging one. I do want to ask all the panelists, last minute advice, tips for the runners. Annick, we'll jump to you first. Anything you want to leave with runners almost 2.5 weeks out from the race?
Yeah, become a race day expert. Really know where the race course is going to go. Nail bib pickup. Don't leave anything up to chance. And I mean, write everything down, because what happens is, with the excitement, the concern, the worry, New York City, you get sort of overwhelmed. It is so common to get overwhelmed. And so I tell all my athletes, no matter what level they're participating at, they have to write down their schedule. They have to really nail the details, because the little things can trip you up. So from laying out your outfit that you want to wear a couple days in advance to make sure you know where everything is, to really knowing what your travel morning of is going to look like, become an expert on this race course. It's only going to serve you as you get ready for your great race.
Emily, what about you? Any final tips for our runners?
Enjoy it as much as, well, I don't know, hopefully you'll enjoy it a bit because you're running for a reason. But sometimes on a race, if things aren't going to plan or you've got too much expectation on like the timings, and just try and enjoy it. Let go of that a little bit. I know I've done half marathons before where I've been so focused on getting a specific time that I just haven't even really enjoyed the atmosphere. I haven't enjoyed the event. I mean, I don't know what COVID regulations you guys have got now, but we didn't get to race for so long. Like, we didn't get to do anything. So really make the most of it, enjoy it. And yeah, that's probably my main bit of advice there.
Yeah, like you guys, we had about 2 years down of very little minimal racing. So I think we had a question, shout out from Monica earlier from New Jersey saying, hello, I'm excited to be back running Brooklyn again. So this race is back after maybe 2 years it was. So enjoy it for sure. Cathy, what about you? Any final tips for the runners or advice leaving them 2 weeks out?
Yeah, I just think listen to your body. If you're sore and achy, scale back, rest a little bit. Listen to your body on race day. If you get a little fatigue, you get a little achy and sore, it's okay to slow down. It's okay to walk. Have realistic expectations with how your training went, realistic expectations with how you're feeling, and I think overall, just have fun. It is a great course and a great race.
Well, thank you everyone for joining today. Emily, Cathy, and Annick, thank you so much for your wisdom and advice for the runners. And thank you all for joining today's chat for the 2022 RBC Brooklyn Half. We cannot wait to see you in 2 weeks crossing the finish line on Coney Island. We will see you there, and thank you so much. Have a great rest of your training.